are deep in a coding session. The agent finally understands the codebase. It has the files open. It has the plan. It is halfway through the refactor. Then this happens. Limit reached. Try again later. That is the moment where Claude Code stops feeling like magic and starts feeling like a gate. And to be clear, Claude Code is still very good. This video is not about pretending it suddenly became bad. The real problem is simpler. You built your whole workflow around one lane, one account, one model family, one usage window. When that lane closes, your work stops with it. So today I want to show you a different shape. OpenCode becomes the coding agent in your terminal. OmniRoute becomes the traffic controller behind it. Instead of asking one provider for everything, your coding task can move through one endpoint that knows about multiple providers, models, fallbacks, and costs. The result is not free infinite Claude. That is the wrong promise. The better promise is this. Your coding workflow should not collapse just because one model says, "Come back in 5 hours." Let's build the mental model first. Imagine your coding task is a package. It says, refactor the auth flow, update the tests, explain the risky files, and do not touch billing. In a normal one-provider setup, that package goes down one road. If the road is open, great. If the road is blocked, your package just sits there. That is what a usage window feels like. Anthropic says Claude usage limits control how much you can interact with Claude over a time period. Claude Code usage can share that same pool with other Claude surfaces. On paid plans, those windows are real, and when you reach a limit, you wait, upgrade, or use credits where available. Again, fair enough. Big models cost money. But from the developer's chair, the pain is not philosophical, it is practical. You had momentum, now you do not. This is where OpenCode and OmniRoute become interesting. OpenCode is an open-source coding agent. It runs in the terminal, desktop, or IDE. It can work across your project, use different providers, and operate like the coding loop you expect. Inspect files, plan changes, edit, test, and keep the conversation attached to the repo. OmniRoute sits one level behind that. It gives you one OpenAI-compatible endpoint for many coding tools. Its docs describe connecting tools like Claude Code, Codex, Klein, Gemini CLI, and OpenCode through a local endpoint. The idea is simple. Instead of teaching every tool every provider, you point the tool at one router. Now the package has more than one road. Let's make this concrete. First, OpenCode sends the request. The request does not need to know the whole provider maze. It only needs a base URL, an API key, and a model name or routing choice. Second, OmniRoute receives the request. This is the traffic controller. It can show available models, connect providers, track usage, and route through the endpoint you configured. Third, the router picks a lane. Maybe the best lane is Claude. Maybe it is GPT. Maybe it is Gemini. Maybe it is a cheaper model for boring edits, then a stronger model for planning. The important change is that model choice moves out of the tool and into the routing layer. Fourth, the answer comes back into the same coding agent. OpenCode still feels like OpenCode. Your terminal loop stays the same, but behind the curtain, the road changed. That is the core mechanism. Same coding task, same terminal, different backend lane. Now, here is where a lot of videos get sloppy. They act like routing is a cheat code. It is not. A router can help you avoid one provider becoming the single point of failure. It can help you compare models faster. It can make switching cheaper and less annoying. It can help you keep local and remote tools pointed at one stable endpoint. But it cannot make a weak model understand your code as well as a strong one. It cannot make every free provider reliable. It cannot remove the need to review patches. And it cannot promise that every task should leave Claude Code. So the real question is not, is this better than Claude Code? The real question is, which job are you asking the tool to do? If I am doing a high-risk architecture change, I still want the strongest planner I can get. I may start with Claude, or another top model, ask for a careful plan, and read it before edits happen. But if I am doing repetitive cleanup, test expansion, simple migrations, docs, or small bug fixes, I do not want my whole day controlled by the most expensive lane. That is where the router earns its keep. Let's walk through the workflow like it is actually happening. The repo has a failing auth test. OpenCode reads the error. It finds the auth middleware. It notices that the cookie parser changed shape. It proposes a small fix. Before it edits, we ask for a plan. One file for the middleware, one test file, No database migrations, no billing code. That plan can run on a stronger model. Then execution can move to a cheaper or faster model. If that model fails, times out, or gives a bad answer, the task packet does not disappear. The router can send the next request down another lane. And visually, this is the whole episode. One coding packet, moving through a system that used to have one road, then through a system with multiple roads. This is also why OpenCode matters in the story. If all you have is a router, you still need a good driving experience. OpenCode gives you the terminal agent loop. Files, plans, sessions, commands, and project context live where developers already work. If all you have is OpenCode with one provider, you still have a lane problem. Together, the stack becomes more flexible. Here is the setup idea in plain English. Install OpenCode. Run OmniRoute locally. Connect at least one provider in the OmniRoute dashboard. Create an endpoint key. Point OpenCode at the OmniRoute base URL. Now when OpenCode talks to the model, it is really talking to the router. That is the trick. Not a hack, not a bypass, just a cleaner boundary. The coding tool should focus on the repo. The router should focus on model traffic. Once you see that boundary, a lot of AI tooling starts to make more sense. Your editor does not need to become your billing dashboard. Your coding agent does not need to know every provider's weird shape. Your model choice does not need to be frozen at the moment you installed the tool. And your workflow should not stop because one account hit one window. Now, I would not use this blindly. Do a small test first. Pick a real but low-risk task. Something like adding tests around a utility, cleaning up duplicated code, or updating docs from the current codebase. Run it once with your normal Claude Code workflow. Run it once with OpenCode through OmniRoute. Compare 4 things. Did it understand the files? Did it edit less than you expected or more than you allowed? Did the tests pass? And did it save enough friction to deserve a place in your daily setup? That last question matters. Viral videos love declaring a winner. Real workflows are messier. Sometimes Claude Code is the winner. Sometimes Codex is. Sometimes Gemini is. Sometimes a smaller model is good enough because the task is boring and the context is clear. The value of a router is that you do not have to turn that choice into a personal identity. You choose the lane for the job. So here is the decision rule. If you are happy with Claude Code, never hit limits, and do not care about provider choice, you probably do not need this today. If you keep hitting 5-hour windows, want to compare models without rewriting configs, or use multiple coding tools across machines, OpenCode plus OmniRoute is worth testing. And if your team is trying to control cost, fallback, and model access in one place, the router pattern is bigger than this one stack. That is the real takeaway. Claude Code did not get replaced because it became useless. It got moved from the whole road to one very good lane. And once your coding workflow has more than one lane, a limit message stops being the end of the session. It becomes a routing event.